You can go to a drift event in a Golf R.
Might not go super well.
It's not going to be as good as all the others, but you can go to a drift event in a Golf R. Do you want to buy a Mark 8 GTI or do you want to buy a Mark 8 Golf R? Now, unlike everybody else on the internet, we're talking about used enthusiast-owned cars. We're sitting right now inside, call it bolt-on Mark 8 GTI, 248 horsepower from the factory, DSG transmission, and the MMI that everybody loves. Let's talk about the MMI for a second. The MMI is not great. I think the entire world knows that by now. Lack of buttons, not great. But after 2 days of driving the car, I think it's like not an issue. In the first day, I had to figure out where the climate control was, how to set up the dash how I want it. But now I got it dialed in. I got boost on the left side, which I think is sweet. You get a factory boost gauge. I got what I'm listening to on the right side of the dash, and then just speedometer and tachometer in the middle. It's perfect. I'll probably never change that. Paired my phone for Apple CarPlay, wireless CarPlay by the way. That solves my music and entertainment issues. So in the matter of a day, maybe two, I think you get used to the MMI. Is it ideal?
Probably not. I mean, yeah. I agree. I'd rather have my buttons and knobs, but I've driven this car quite a bit and it's awkward for maybe the first few hours behind the wheel, but once you get used to it, it's really not that bad.
Agreed. So if you're shopping for a used Mark 8, this is the video for you. We're going to review everything and we're knocking the MMI out because yeah, it's not great, but it's not bad enough that I wouldn't buy the car. You get super used to it really fast. It's just a new learning curve.
Yep.
So speaking of used and modified cars, we are in a lightly modified Mark 8 GTI, still on a factory motor, factory tune, but we do have our ECS big bore inlet, which gives some good sucky noises, as well as our air filter. I'll do a little downshift, get some blow off for you guys. For the sake of driving in Mexico, let's say that was a legal pull. And you hear the blow off. DSG cars, blow off is a little bit different than if you drive a manual car, but you do get the DSG burble, which I also really love.
Yeah, it's nice.
And truth be told, I've been using this as a commuter and I think I would buy it again with DSG.
I'd probably take the manual, but I don't hate the DSG.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking for a commuter car that's fun to drive, and you're probably shopping for hot hatch because you like Euros, I think the Mark 8 GTI is a really good value proposition. So this car's got 20,000, 25,000 miles on it. It's 2022 launch edition. You can pick these up for 25, 26 grand. And a Golf R of the same launch era, same mileage is 10, 12 grand more than that. So yeah, in a world where money's unlimited, you'd have to take the Golf R. But if you're on the fence or debating that extra like 10 or 12 grand budget, I think I'm actually here to say, buy the GTI.
I agree. I was actually thinking about it last night before we filmed this. I like them both. The R is obviously superior, but if I'm spending $25,000, $30,000 on a car, I'm going to take the GTI. Like, I can really see myself buying one of these. If I'm spending in that 35 to 40 range, I don't think I'm buying a Golf R. I'm looking at an 8 VRS3 used or something else in that $40,000 range. Once you get to 40 grand, I think you can get a lot of car for the money. Where I think at the GTI, it's one of the better values for $25,000.
Yeah, I think as a $25,000 value prop, this thing reigns supreme. Tastefully modified as well. I think you would very easily be able to find several of these with very similar modifications on the secondary market. And I can already hear in the comments, mods don't add value. Yeah. I think we have all tasteful mods on the car. You would see this on the marketplace. And maybe it's 23K base, but I think with kind of the kit that's on this car, I'd still look at 25, 26 grand and not having to do all this work and not having to spend the aftermarket full retail cost dollars. So walk me through, you've put a lot of the stuff on this car. Walk me through what we have on it. I know it's intake, turbo inlet pipe, exhaust, intercooler, we have blow-off valve. It's all ECS in-house brand stuff.
Yep, yeah, so on the exterior we have our carbon fiber front lip, carbon fiber rear diffuser, our carbon fiber hatch spoiler extension, carbon fiber mirror caps, a few other small things like some reflector deletes in the front bumper, and I think those all really add a lot of aggression to the car.
Yes.
One of my maybe critiques when the Mark 8 first came out, I thought they were maybe a little bubbly looking, a little bit too round. They didn't have the aggressive look, especially coming from the Mark 7, which I think was a much more sharp, aggressive looking car. But when you add on those exterior bits, lower the car, put it on some prettier wheels, I think now this car has a much more aggressive look and it looks the modern, aggressive, hot hatch part much more.
Both cars, in my opinion, sort of suffer from this, both the GTI and the R. They have slightly different fascia, but I agree, they kind of were very modern, very pedestrian friendly. And when you get to add some side skirts, some lips, some diffusers, some wings, etc., it really wakes the car up. I think it makes it look sports car, not even just like, oh, that's a hot hatch, but like, whoa, that car's fast. And do we offer a lot of that stuff in ABS as well as carbon fiber?
Yeah, the entire package for this car, we have it available in gloss black, ABS, and the front lips, we have several styles of front lips as well, from this carbon fiber one to several different shapes for the ABS as well.
If you were to pay retail for all the carbon fiber that's on the car, what are you looking at? 2 grand?
About 2 grand, yeah.
And if you were to buy everything in ABS black plastic, what are you looking at?
$700 to $800.
Okay, so quite the price difference. But you can see how mods begin to add value, right? Like if I saw this car, I was shopping used, and I saw the carbon fiber on it, you know, like, okay, that's 2 grand worth of stuff. No, I'm not gonna give the seller an extra 2 grand on top of the asking price. But yeah, maybe that's worth an extra $500 over the other one that doesn't have any exterior mods. Maybe it's worth even $1 grand because it does look really good, and the fitment is really good. Everything just flows seamlessly, not just like fitment to the body lines, but I feel like it looks like if Volkswagen released an R package body kit like they used to do in like the Mark IV and 5 days, I think it'd look like this.
And what I really like about our exterior package for this car as well is our engineers put a lot of time and effort into making exterior enhancements that flow with the body lines of the car. If you look at the trunk spoiler, if you look at the front lip, it's not just some big gaudy splitter that's bolted on the front. It looks like it belongs on the car. It flows into the OEM body lines. So it's enhanced, but it's not over the top and gaudy and really stands out. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you might even think some of these parts may have came as a factory option.
All right, so let's talk suspension for a minute. We are highway cruising right now, again, trying to show you what life is like in a daily driver. And we are on lowering springs, which has made the ride feel more aggressive, but I think it's done it in a really positive way. On ramps, off ramps, and we're about to head to an area around the shop called the Valley, which is our version of canyon cruising. And I'm really excited to have this just nicely OEM plus lowered look. What is the drop on the ECS lowering springs?
About 1.5 inches.
Nice. And you'll see when you guys look at the externals, or the editor will put one in right now as a roller. But the ride height looks still very manageable in the snow if you have those kinds of concerns, manageable over speed bumps, but it definitely just adds, like we were talking about in the exterior mods, that OEM plus look. This car has the lowering springs, sway bar end links, our ECS subframe brace, and rear strut tower brace.
Yep.
Like those are all very tasteful mods that I would also do to my car. So again, as we talk, mods don't add value. What do we look at? About $1 grand, maybe less?
About $1 grand for the whole package, yeah.
But you have to drop the suspension to do it. So I'm probably inclined to find a car with those kinds of choice mods, those tasteful, slight upgrades that don't rattle your teeth out. And yeah, we go over a bump. It's aggressive. It's supposed to be. I want to carve, and that's why we're headed to the Valley, because I want to carve.
In factory form, I drove this car quite a bit in factory form, and then how it is now, and it handled great from the factory as you'd expect from a GTI, but it was a little, I want to say, indirect or floaty feeling. Like I never felt like I didn't have grip or it wasn't going to turn in.
I call it doughy.
Didn't feel as direct and connected, as sharp as I might want. Now I feel it's much more sharp now. I feel it's very connected now.
Yeah, I feel like it's spry. It's ready to pounce out of a corner instead of perhaps roll into it as if you were needing some depth. We have a muffler delete, which will be out towards the end of the year. If you guys like the sound as you hear it in the video, we're doing a little more testing on it. Doesn't drone. It's got a nice growl. You know it's back there. It's not super quiet like factory, but that combo of the exhaust, the intake, the turbo inlet pipe, and even that front mount intercooler just moving a little more cool air, a little more volume, I think it all combines into a really enjoyable daily drivable package.
I think another benefit to the DSG2 is if you're trying to modify on a budget, a manual transmission in a Mark 8 GTI, if you put a stage 2 flash on it with a downpipe and the supporting mods, you're going to roast your stock clutch immediately. So now you're putting $1,000 clutch in it and pulling the transmission, doing all that. You're never going to have to upgrade your DSG other than a DSG tune, but that's a lot easier and probably more cost effective than pulling the transmission out to put an upgraded clutch in it.
Yeah, we're not looking at DSG clutch packs and stuff.
Right.
You have some headroom here. So this road's under construction. It's a little bouncy, but it's probably a good note that the springs are still nicely paired with the factory dampeners. Rebounds coming in quick. We did some off camber braking and turning, and again, that traction control, whatever wizardry is in this car, is really very nice. It doesn't want to over rotate under braking like I do believe the Mark 7 does. There, that was a 2-gear downshift, so I could hit that turn, put it in instantly because of DSG. It's a different kind of enjoyable driving experience. Last chance, final thoughts on GTI before we switch cars.
I really like it. I think it'd be an ideal daily driver if I were we're looking at a car in the price point in that $25,000 to $30,000 range. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better bang for the buck. And I think that's really what's made GTIs so great over the years, and what got me into them years ago is the performance for the money, the options for the money. I still think they're a great bang for the buck even now.
So for that 25 to 30 grand price point, new cars, there's almost none that you want. Yep. You can pretend to think about a Civic Si new, you can pretend to think about a Mazda 3 new, but as soon as you go to something of comparable speed, you have to go up to the R, the Type R Civic, or you have to go to the turbo all-wheel drive Mazda 3.
Yeah.
To your point, the Subarus are also in the same vein, but they're not hatches.
Right.
What else do you even
Corolla
have?
GR, but those are
that's 50 grand.
Wildly expensive.
Even
car.
2 years old with 40,000 miles, you can't even touch this. I'd
Yeah.
take 2 of these over a Corolla GR. And
Same.
I've driven the GR, and I've driven the GR on track, and it gets down. No shame against it. It's just way too expensive for what you get. So yeah, I think if you're on a budget, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go drive an R. Everything is meaner about this car.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We switched cars to the $40,000 or $42,000 Golf R. This one is 2022, a little more than 11,000 miles. Again, tastefully modded with intake and exhaust mods. Walk us through a little bit what's on the car so that people know what we're gonna experience on the drive.
It's got our carbon fiber intake system, big bore turbo inlet, our OE location MQB intercooler, our valve cap back exhaust, which utilizes the factory valve controllers. Lowering springs and wheels, and a tune. Unitronic Stage 1 Plus ECU tune.
And with that tune, we had to upgrade the clutch, or we've chosen to upgrade the clutch?
We had already upgraded the clutch because we were confirming that the clutch kit fit and doing all of our standard testing. But if you do a Unitronic Stage 1 Plus tune, they do recommend upgrading your clutch because the stock clutch will not handle the torque.
Was this what everyone would consider a full bolt-on car minus a turbo?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so we have everything from turbo inlet pipes, front mount intercooler, intake, downpipe?
No downpipe. We don't have a downpipe. That's probably the only thing left that we could do to the car before upgrading the turbo.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, we have to have catalytic converters here. I know a lot of people live in areas where they don't, or if you're talking track-only applications, you don't. But we still have inspections, and so we do have to keep our catalytic converters. But I think it's worth calling out. Don't let that deter you. I think it's, yeah, there's power left on the table with a regular cat, but this thing still gets it. Here, second gear, 4,000 RPM. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but that's how fun this car is.
It is quick.
So we're on H&R lowering springs here.
Yep.
Do we have similar sway bar end link setups, strut tower braces, and all of those things?
We have all the bracing on it. We don't have any sway bar end links or anything like that.
Okay, so we're basically factory suspension on lowering springs.
Yep.
And again, the ride feels good. It's agile feeling. You can actually feel the extra weight of all the Golf R package stuff in this car, I feel like.
I agree. It feels like a heavier car. It feels more substantial down the road.
Yeah, and you can feel there's more on the rear end of it too. For the most part, I think you know you're in a beefier car from both power and just drive.
It being the higher trim, more expensive model with more power and all that, I like that it feels heavier and more solid. I like that feel.
So the biggest biggest differential between the two cars is obviously the horsepower and all-wheel drive. Actually, about what are we sitting at power mod wise? We have the Unitronic tune, you have all the intake and exhaust mods, effectively the full bolt-on car minus cats. What would you guess, 440s?
I think we're sitting right around the 400 mark.
400, okay. So we're talking about 150 more horsepower than the GTI. A little bit more weight, but it absolutely translates to a much faster car, a much faster driving experience. This is the race version of a GTI altogether. Yep. And the manual is lovely, save the manuals. We're using the BFI shift knob. It is a very common complaint all over the world that the shift knobs in these cars didn't feel very good. This is a nice leather wrapped. It's blue to match the car, and we really like it.
It's weighted, it makes the shift feel a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
It's also paired with our short shifter out on the transmission as well. So
yeah.
It's a shorter front to back and side to side.
And I enjoy the short shifter movement. It adds that nice notchiness. You feel when you're in the gear, you get a nice haptic moment back, and I think the short shifter does a nice job of accentuating that. All right, so one thing I have noticed is that I'm hearing the motor a lot more, and I can control it with the right foot when I want it to growl a little more. So is it still using the factory opening logic on the exhaust?
So it open and closes with the servos when you take it in and out of sport mode, exactly like the stock exhaust.
And what I like about that, and if you're looking for this on the secondary market, I think I would leave a valve exhaust on my search criteria for the secondary used market, because it allows this to still be a nice daily driver without any of the drone, but when you want the noise, you get it on demand.
Yep.
It's perfect. Even my BMW exhaust, I still have to click the button, so it's really cool that that opens automatically. So one of the other reasons you want the Golf R is because of a little thing called drift mode. Now we're getting on an on-ramp, so I'm not gonna go ham, but the fact that we just put a Volkswagen into rear-wheel drive mode brings me great joy. How's your first drive with me going?
Pretty good. Drive the car a little different than I might.
So I hope that makes the cut of the video, because we just did a nice little second gear on-ramp and I put a lot of right foot in it, and we had a really fun second gear wiggly on-ramp.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a GTI.
No.
Like, this is genuine happiness that's in my face right now. I am a huge Volkswagen fanboy. I've had it my whole life. To have a rear-wheel drive, option, my heart is like beating a little, because that's how much I like that. And I think that's one of the hugest selling points, really hugest selling points for me if you are torn between the two, how you want to use the car. If you all want to get slidey, maybe you want to do an autocross, maybe you want to go do a drift event. Dude, you can go to a drift event in a Golf R.
Might not go super well.
It's not going to be as good as all the others, but you can go to a drift event in a Golf R. Or you could wow some people at autocross who have no idea what a Golf R is and do some wiggly turns through some cones. So let's talk a little more about the noises. The air mods on this have really woken it up. It's got some growl. I will say, I don't think it is as dailyable as the GTI, but it's not supposed to be. I think if you're in the Golf R market, you're looking for something you can take to work regularly, but it's probably your second car. But look at that, 6th gear, cruising. You can have a conversation, great road trip car. Wireless charging for your phone, another great road trip car tip.
Same with the GTI. I've taken both these cars on road trips. You put them up in 6th gear or whatever the top gear is in the DSG and the GTI, set the cruise control at 75, 80, you're gonna get 40 miles per gallon on the highway just cruising on a road trip.
Wow, that genuinely surprises me, 40.
Yeah.
Wow, what's this thing pulling?
I've seen 40 in this.
Whoa.
Generally more in the 30s in this, although I also don't know when I've driven this car more if how much of that's due to it not getting as good a fuel economy and how I drive it.
I will say it's very hard not to drive this car fast. You can feel it wants to go. I do feel like the GTI is subtle and waiting there for you when you want to go. But this thing is like, are we going? Are we going? Are we going?
Yeah.
And I can see some fuel economy concerns with that. All right, walk me through the exterior styling. So between the Mark 8 and the Golf R, there are subtle fascia differences. but tell me about what we offer from like that catalog perspective for spoilers, lips, etc.
We offer the same full package we have for the MK8 GTI. So we have a carbon fiber front lip, carbon fiber rear diffuser. We have a carbon fiber hatch spoiler extension on this car. That's not out yet. It'll be coming out in the next couple of months. But we do have ABS options for the lip, the diffuser, and the ABS hatch spoiler extension is out right now, as well as other small things like our mirror caps, side marker deletes, things like that.
I do want to talk about the mirror caps too, because we had carbon fiber on the GTI and we have gloss black on here. And I'm almost always inclined to favor the carbon fiber, but I actually really like the black on this car and the carbon fiber on the GTI.
I'm the same way. I really like the carbon fiber, and I think it's probably a lot due to the color differences as well. The black ABS on this car, I think, looks personally better than the carbon fiber, where the carbon fiber on the GTI, I think, really pops.
Yeah, and for those of you following along at home, they'll edit something in here, but this is a nice gloss black ABS. It's not just like that flat black ABS, like if you have to get a factory lip for some bumper that you tore off or something. It's like a nice presentation showpiece. And I think very similarly to the GTI, by no surprise, it does give the car that really nice OEM plus look. And we have a few options that you can, you know, make it your own.
This car has a lot of gloss black in the grille and other trim pieces. And it's that same OEM plus look where it flows with the body lines, but also you have the same finish as so much of the other trim on the car that they look right at home on it.
Yeah. And again, we're in a construction zone headed back through what we just came through in the GTI. And similarly, I'm feeling the bumps. We're on a lower car, but it's still super manageable. You could daily list from a suspension perspective. It's not super aggressive. And that subtle drop, again, is probably a mod that I would pay for more on the secondary. And I think the other mod that I would pay for more on the secondary is this car has a stage 3 clutch. Now, not everyone will. We use this for a lot of prototyping of products, but that's a lot of work. And any OEM plus clutch is worth some aftermarket monies because it is such a laborious job to get to it, and then it just moves your power ceiling so much higher.
Even the stage 2 would hold the power this car makes, and the stage 2 has much more of an OEM feel. The stage 2 is a very daily drivable clutch. We had the stage 3 in this one because we were testing it, but also the way this car gets driven, since we use it to test so many products, we wanted that stronger than necessary clutch.
I have no idea what you're talking about on the way this car gets driven.
Yeah, no idea.
We've been doing the speed limit and keeping the tires on the ground the whole time. Yeah, and a single mass flywheel upgrade, which is a differentiator as well, because you have the dual mass flywheel. You do get a little bit of clutch chatter out of it, but it's totally normal for really any single mass flywheel converted car, period. You're gonna have that little bit of chatter, but you get so much more reliable clamping force and such a higher power ceiling out of the conversion.
The lighter flywheel, it definitely revs a little nicer.
Yeah, actually, I wonder if I can give it some highway revs. Sounds like a video game. It does, it sounds like a video game. I hope the sound is translating for you guys at home. I feel like I am playing the real life version of Gran Turismo right now.
With the video game setup, I really like the gauge cluster screen, how it's laid out differently on the Golf R versus the GTI. It's another subtle difference that I think really makes the car feel much more like a race car, that performance-oriented feel with how the tack's laid out and everything.
Yes, I agree with that feedback exactly. They definitely set this car up for that enthusiast owner, enthusiast driver. And I think that's one thing that, again, as we talk, like what other hot hatches can you get in the industry, Volkswagen has always kind of subtly, if not behind the scenes, but subtly supported that modding community pretty well with little things, little hints like that, and building cars that can really take a lot more power. Like we've added, 100 plus horsepower to this thing.
Yeah, over 100 horsepower added to this
without
car.
really blinking much.
Yeah, never really a concern at all about reliability.
And it is really hard to argue with that 440-ish, 450-ish horsepower figure that this car makes in terms of the GTI's 250-ish, 240-ish. But again, if you think, yeah, but $10,000, $12,000 price difference, yeah, I think maybe that the GTI probably comes out ahead on like the miles per dollar ratio, but the smiles are bigger with this car.
The GTI is quick, it's fun, it's peppy. This car, I think, is actually fast.
Yeah, this car, it's like me. it's almost mean to drive. And I don't mean bad, I just mean like, you just feel like, I want to eat up everything in my way. So now that we're still driving, we're city driving, I'm in 4th gear, putzing through town, the exhaust is perfectly tempered, induction noises are perfectly tempered. I of course can womp on it if I want them, but for the most part, it's back to like a smooth, daily, enjoyable drive. We are on the electronic dampening system, and I believe the GTI is also EDS?
Yes, both Mark 8s use the electronic dampening system.
So for those of you who are wondering, yes, lower inch springs work just fine with EDS. You're making a very similar sacrifice to 100% comfort as you are putting a coilover on any strut. So I do feel like it's settled nicely. It's got that aggressive stance. It's got that aggressive handling. I sign off, especially after driving through the city. I'm still into it.
These H&R springs on this and the ECS springs on the Mark 8, they offer a very similar drop. And I don't think they make the cars so low that you're worried about smacking the front bumper everywhere you go. It's still a very daily drivable, comfortable height. Another thing these cars both have, they have our street shield kits all the way front to back. So they have our engine skid plate, as well as our fuel tank skid plate and our transmission skid plate. This car specifically, I've smacked it off the ground before pulling out of parking lots and stuff at different events and never had a concern.
Yeah, I feel like the skid plates are another good mod to look out for if you are shopping secondary market, of somebody who knows like what's up. It's probably the sign of a well-maintained vehicle, is like, okay, not only have I put all these mods on, but I'm doing some preventative stuff like a skid plate. It just starts to build an ownership portfolio of the right kind of modded car you want to be buying. So we just wrapped lunch. We're taking all the cruise thoughts on the cars as well. And you may notice I actually opted to come home in the GTI. We got about a 20-minute drive ahead of us, 25-minute drive ahead of us, and I find myself gravitating towards the GTI. We're in the heart of the city. We went to a nice historic restaurant, Swenson's. Thank you for letting us film. Free shout out over there. And delicious Scally Boys, if you're not familiar. I have opted to take the GTI home. A little more comfortable driving experience, not having a clutch. Just feels like what I gravitate to on just like a random daily decision. If we're going to the track, I'd be in the car behind us. But I do think GTI is probably the right value proposition if you have some budget constraints, and Golf R is clearly the right value proposition if 40 grand is no object to you. But both present as really good, really mod-friendly platforms, and I'm okay with that outcome. When you're given a shop car to go home in, which do you gravitate towards?
When I'm taking a car just to drive home, I'm just taking it for a weekend or a day while they're working on one of my cars in the shop or something, it's gonna be the Golf R every time, because I'm not living with it. Like, it's so fun to drive just for a few days or an evening. I'm gonna take it every time, but if I had to own one, I'd probably buy the GTI, just because I have a hard time justifying spending $40,000 on what is still a Golf.
Yeah, that is the probably hardest part of this conversation, is we really haven't addressed that elephant in the room of like, ultimately it's a $40,000 Golf. At least when you go into the Audi platform, you get those other accoutrements with it for that higher price point and all the same performance. But I think that is important to bring up. It's a $40,000 Golf. Remember the SRT4 Neon?
Yeah.
People were like, it's not a Neon, it's an SRT4. Nah, bro, it's a Neon.
No cars are a lot right now, but 40 grand for a Golf R it's a great car. 40 grand is probably worth it, but you get $40,000. I'm thinking buying a used Audi, an M car.
Yeah, it does begin to open that up.
I could foresee in 10 to 15 years the Mark 8 R really getting valuable, especially being the last manual Golf R you'll be able to get.
Yeah, I don't think we even mentioned that you won't be able to get these cars new with manuals anymore.
We will look back on both the Mark 8 GTI and R really fondly in a few years when they're the last manuals available. I know it's not an apples to apples comparison because one's much older, but 40 grand, you're looking at F80 M3s. Like, you get an F80 M3 for that kind of money. Now it's gonna have more miles and it's an older car, but that's a lot of performance for 40 grand. And the ceiling is so high.
Yeah.
It's still fun.
It's still fun. That's still shit-eating grins per mile, that's for sure.
Like, after getting out of the Golf R, it definitely doesn't feel fast.
No.
But it's still fun. It still gets out of its own way. It still makes the right noises.
I mean, that was still 30 to 80 in a very considerably short amount of time. 3, 2, 1, go!
That's it. The GTI's faster.
Yeah, there you have it, folks.
Completely fair
GTI
race.
just smoked the Golf R.
Completely fair and even race right there.
Well, we have that settled. Buy the GTI. It's faster than a Golf R. See you later.